Hi there, everybody. My name is Sam Weeks. I am a full-time admissions consultant, and today I'm joined by Cheng, who's a senior associate brand manager at a top CPG company, and also a senior admissions consultant here at Sam Weeks Consulting. John, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Thanks, Sam. So, just to give you a quick introduction, I am a marketer. I actually spent the bulk of my career working for an advertising agency called Ogilvy pre-MBA. I was a brand consultant there for about 6 years. Did my MBA to pivot, to stay in marketing, but pivot more into a ground-up function. So I'm actually now a senior associate brand manager at General Mills. It's a pleasure to meet you again, Sam.
Great stuff. So can you start off, please, by telling us why marketing is an attractive post-MBA career?
I think it boils down, Sam, to the ability to shape the growth of the company. You can shape the growth of the company in many ways. You can be right up there in the beginning as a brand manager or product marketing manager, tinkering with how a product's developed, and that involves working with anyone from a consumer insights person to a finance professional. So that's really exciting to get involved so early on. And then you can also think about being involved in marketing and more of the tail end. So once a product is created, shaping its growth through communications. There are so many levers to marketing, and being involved in any which one can be very, very helpful for the company. And it's also a very fun and exciting endeavor to be part of.
Because MBAs, they teach storytelling, don't they? It's a big part of the MBA program. Leaders tell stories, and storytelling fits, as you say, really closely with marketing. Okay, well, let's dive into it then. So what are some of the different types of marketing roles that are available? You mentioned you were at an agency, but I assume there are loads, right?
Correct. So if you think about marketing, you can think about marketing more in a consultative lens, and then brand strategy, brand consulting is a path. So you can think of consulting practices within agencies. You can think about companies that specialize solely in brand consulting. So for instance, Inner Brand, Lippincott, brands that consultancies that work directly with the C-suite CMOs to shape the overall direction of the company. So that's brand consulting. One other area that you can think about is, perhaps more of the brand management route. So brand management route, you can think of more of a skill set that encompasses general management, the ability to lead and shape the overall direction of the company from the beginning. So development of products, working with cross-functional partners to rally the creation of the product, and once created, driving the growth of the product through all the different classic marketing levers. So that's brand management. So if you think about Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Kraft Heinz, those are all companies that offer general management, brand management type roles. Then you can think about it in terms of the third pillar, which is product marketing management. So similar to brand management, but more with a tech lens. So if you think about the FAANG companies, they not only have product management roles, but also PMM roles, as we so call them. And that typically mirrors general management in some ways, but with knowledge of tech, and the offerings a little bit different. That's kind of how I would think about marketing in those three different verticals.
Okay. So how then do those different companies recruit?
So typically, general manage. So the brand consulting post-MBA track is typically ad hoc. I think the recruiting cycles vary. Sometimes they're later in the game. Sometimes they're earlier in the game. They have certain schools that they go to. If you notice, some companies like Profit, for instance, they tend to recruit a lot of folks from my alma mater, Berkeley Haas. If you think about the classic brand management cycle, sometimes they have their own internship program where it's super curated. They'll typically recruit around maybe anywhere between 10 and 15 interns into their program. and they would recruit again through school events, or there may be conferences throughout the year where they will get a pipeline of graduates of prospective graduates who are interested in applying for those programs. And then with PMM, that typically comes with the same recruiting cycles as other roles like PMs, for instance. So if you think back to what I mentioned with the FANG companies, that's when they recruit PMs is when they recruit PMs as well.
Okay, so do they have super structured programs, like, for example, the investment bankers out there, and like some of the other industries that have a very specific MBA recruiting track and a very structured program? For example, maybe rotational. For example, does that work in the marketing space as well?
It does, especially for brand management. Okay. I would say, speaking from experience, a lot of these companies would. Once you start the internship, you will have a project. Sometimes you'll have a team project that you have to work through over a series of months, over that internship period, whether it's 8 weeks or 10 weeks or even 12. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll pair you with a buddy, they'll pair you with a mentor, sometimes both, and they'll have you work through the projects. They may have a check-in point throughout the middle of it, and that's how they track performance and provide feedback accordingly as to whether you're tracking towards an offer or not. Mm-hmm. That's the brand management, your classic consumer product brand management route. With the internship for brand consulting, it really varies by company. I think some of them have more structure, some of them don't. It also depends on whether they've worked with MBA consultants in the past, but that just because they haven't worked with MBA students in the past doesn't mean that their program is structured or not. I think it just depends on whether they have experience doing it. And then with the PMMs, I think again, it also depends on the size of the company and whether they've attracted MBA folks in the past as well. I would say it varies and it depends, which is a very MBA answer, Sam. But
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what about in terms of like the current market situation? So there's lots of talk at the moment about the economic situation, and so how is marketing recruiting at the moment?
I think it remains strong, Sam. I think at the end of the day, marketing is the engine of growth for the company in some ways. I think if you are to see a reduction of PMM internships, I think that you will also see an equivalent reduction of PMs. That's just my perspective. But I think consumer products remains a strong and relatively
quite counter-cyclical sector, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yes. I think if firms were to hire interns, they may reduce the number of interns, but they will still hire for that internship program. They may reduce the duration of the internship, but the point is that they will still give that opportunity. Sometimes it just helps to create that healthy pipeline. It also helps maintain awareness of the brand generally in the eyes of recruiters and in the eyes of schools. Because if you think about if you decide not to recruit off the face, during a certain period, then your relationship with the school erodes over time, and that prevents you from building a relationship both ways, so to speak.
Yeah, and then being able to get access to their graduates when the boom times come back.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street.
Okay. So, what do marketing companies generally look for in post-MBA or in MBA recruits?
Mm-hmm. So 3 things. One is the ability to tell stories. So any evidence of being strategic, any evidence of being able to articulate yourself, that's really, really important. The second one is increasingly how comfortable you are with data. So are you good at are you good at consumer insights? You know how to read a chart? Do you know how to take data and put into a compelling story? I think increasingly for certain, maybe for a few tech companies or more tech inclined companies, it's, do you have the ability to leverage other kinds of data resources? So not just Excel, but potentially even Tableau, SQL, among others. Lastly, I think evidence of leadership is important, right? So usually in marketing, the projects that you initiate, the things that you start are ad hoc, and they can sometimes be done in ambiguous environments. So being a self-starter, corralling others, getting people on your side, getting your points across, and getting people to back you up for them, that's really important. So three things: storytelling, comfort with data, and leadership.
Okay. So all quite MBA friendly skills, all right. Skills that are developed during an MBA. Okay, so how often do people pivot into marketing with an MBA? How often do people move from another sector and then use the MBA to pivot into marketing? Does that happen?
That's very common, Sam. You can think about people who may be ex-consultants who want to go into MBA. I think some of the skill sets may transfer over. One may be storytelling, one may be data. You can think about people who were in the military who have had really strong experiences with leadership, and they want to use the MBA to beef up their data acumen, their other formal skill sets that they can parlay into marketing. I think what's unique about going into a marketing program, what's unique about the internship, is that there's a very robust training program, especially for bigger companies that argue with the skill set if you have the bones in place to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. And okay, so let's say I'm in one of those other industries and I want to use an MBA to pivot into marketing, or I'm already in marketing and I want to use an MBA to develop my career further. Which business schools, which MBAs should I be considering?
So I think the most important thing is to think about the companies that you want to specifically target. Looking back into LinkedIn and Googling maybe school X, this company, and seeing if there's a robust pipeline of people from that school going into that company. Obviously, all the top schools are fair game, but that doesn't mean that a top marketing firm, a top consumer products company may recruit more from one place versus the other. Yes, they won't discount people who graduated from a certain school, but they may have a prior relationship in place. That means that the counselor at the school will have a deeper knowledge about the program and provide and share best practices of how to nail that interview and get into that program. A lot of the big regional schools are particularly adept at that. So think about the likes of Kellogg, Ross, and many other schools in that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that you can still apply to these roles with an MBA from many of these different programs, but if you apply to one where there's a relationship in place, you might find it easier. You might get some interesting insight from the careers office that other people don't get access to. You might get them the recruiter visiting campus, and a few opportunities that make it a little bit easier if you apply to a school that has a relationship with your target company.
Sure.
Nice advice. I really like it. Okay, so how specifically can somebody use an MBA, leverage an MBA to get the skills they need for marketing? In other words, what are some of the classes that are on offer from MBAs that are useful for marketing?
Any kind of analytics class will be very important.
Interesting. Not intuitive. That's not something that people are immediately going to think of.
Right, because I think increasingly most of the companies draw from data as much as they do from qualitative insights, and I think some of the brand consulting firms, for instance, really value people with these analytical data skills. And so if you look at some of their job descriptions, they'll have that specifically called out. Obviously, that's also fair game for PMM roles. So finding classes that may have things that, for instance, they're there's a class that in my school that, I don't know if they still have it, but it's called storytelling with data. That's a very classic one that everyone will find helpful, but especially with marketers that will benefit them. I think obviously all the marketing strategy classes are fair game. So not just the foundational marketing class, but some MBA classes will take it in other directions. So for instance, like brand management is a class that some schools offer. Some schools will offer, for instance, marketing for lean startups, which helps give you what arms you with a set of tools that may be better suited for smaller companies or more agile companies. So there are many different directions that you can take in marketing. I think, of course, take all the valuable marketing classes that attune to function or maybe even industry, but don't forget the ones that have data in them.
In the same way that you have finance clubs and PE and VC clubs and consulting clubs, are there similar things for marketing?
Absolutely. There are marketing clubs. There are also industry clubs that may have a marketing function, and that's especially important if there's an industry that appeals to you, whether that's a food industry club or consumer products club that have maybe a marketing function, and gaining experience running projects with a marketing lens is also very important. So maybe not just joining clubs, but also participating in case competitions or being the marketing lead of a consulting group project that you are tasked with. Some classes have a accelerator program or ability for you to start a mini brand or mini product to try to take on as much of a marketing role in that. And that will help you not only from a skill building and knowledge building perspective, but also it just helps give you the bullet points that you can then talk about when you interview with any of those marketing functions for any of those firms.
Talking points to the interview, yeah, super helpful. Okay, so let's say that I'm applying to an MBA in like round one, for example, and I get an admit, and I've got a few months before the MBA actually starts. What can somebody do between getting the admit and starting the MBA to sort of get this transition into marketing, get a bit of a head start with the transition?
Sure. I would be really familiar with, firstly, the industry that you're recruiting for in marketing. So whether that's tech, consumer products, food, etc. It may be helpful networking and reaching out to folks in the company that you want to get hired in just casually. I mean, there'll be a formal networking process once you start school, just to get your name out there. That's really important. The other thing that you can do is to just see if there are any classes that may not be offered in the MBA program, but things that you want to get enrichment in. So whether that's joining a quick boot camp, maybe it's a short part-time one, or something a little bit more full-time, especially if you want to beef up your data skills. That's paramount. I think those two are probably the best things you can do. So it's networking, it's three things really: getting familiar with the industry and then beefing up your analytical skills.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's all the questions I had. John, if somebody wants to potentially work with you to apply to MBA programs, maybe they have a marketing angle on their profile, how can they get hold of you?
So I have a jc@samweeks.com is the email that I would encourage anyone and everyone with a marketing interest or questions about marketing, questions about this conversation, to just reach out.
Awesome. Fantastic. And applicants can also set up calls with myself or with John via the website. There's a button in the top corner to reach out to us and arrange a follow-up conversation. So we'd encourage you to do that. John, thank you very much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, it's really good to hear your insight into marketing, which is to outsiders like me a bit of a dark art.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sam.
Lovely to speak to you. See ya.